Fate, it seems, has a wicked sense of humor, often disguised as a standard Tuesday. For Dax Walker, a mechanic whose hands were permanently etched with the grease of 1,000 engines, destiny didn't knock. It kicked down the door wearing obsidian armor. Dax had just finished performing a minor miracle on a battered cargo hauler at Port Osiris, a floating hunk of steel orbiting a dying star. The ship's owner, a multi-armed Zenti merchant, was ecstatic, praising Dax as the least incompetent mechanic he'd ever met. It was the kind of backhanded compliment that defined life on the station, a haven for smugglers, drifters, and those seeking the comfort of anonymity. Dax took his credits and headed for the Rusted Wrench, a dive bar where the lighting was dim enough to hide one's regrets. He was midway through ordering a drink when the air in the room grew heavy, charged with the static of imminent violence. The chatter died. In the doorway stood a figure that seemed to swallow the light. Zashara Vex. She was an Askari warrior, 7 feet of lethal grace encased in dark, symbol-etched plating. Her eyes, glowing emeralds of predatory intent, locked onto him. In stories like this, one expects a bounty hunt or a vendetta. Instead, Zashara marched up to the terrified mechanic and dropped a bomb that hit harder than a plasma cannon. "You will be my mate," she declared. The silence in the bar was absolute. Dax choked, his survival instincts screaming that this was a hallucination. But Zashara was terrifyingly real, driven by a cultural logic that equated mechanical competence with supreme desirability. Dax tried to deflect, stammering about dinner and dating, but the Askari dealt in absolutes, not appetizers. She had chosen him. Panic, cold and sharp, seized him. He needed an out, a way to reject a living weapon without becoming a stain on the floor. She offered him a loophole. He could present 3 impossible trials. If she failed, he was free. Desperation breeds creativity. Dax smirked, thinking he was clever. "Fine," he said. "Steal Warlord Korak's flagship. Tame a void beast. Survive a duel against your own people." The room held its breath. These weren't tasks. They were suicide notes. Yet, Zashara simply smiled, accepted the challenge, and walked out. Dax slumped, convinced she was marching to her death. Beside him, his scaly friend Jorgo laughed, telling him he should have just bought her dinner. A week passed. Dax oscillated between guilt and relief, assuming the problem had solved itself via mortality. But the universe wasn't done with him yet. The screens in the Rusted Wrench flickered to life with an urgent bulletin. Warlord Korak's personal flagship, the Unyielding Blade, had been stolen. The footage showed Zashara on the bridge, looking bored amidst the chaos. Dax barely had time to process the absurdity before the next update hit. A void beast had been spotted near the derelict mall, and it was responding to commands. She had named the apex predator Snuffles. Dax watched the news feed, his reality fracturing. It's a strange thing to realize your bluff has been called by a force of nature. Just as the horror set in, a transmission beamed into his workshop. Zashara stood there, smug and victorious. She had completed 2 trials. The third, the duel, was scheduled for tomorrow. The station buzzed with anticipation. Dax, however, felt a sickening dread. Zashara wasn't fighting a nobody. She had challenged General Vector, a massive war machine of a soldier. In the combat arena, surrounded by a bloodthirsty crowd, Dax watched from the shadows. He realized with a jolt that he didn't want her to die. The fight was a blur of violence, a dance of steel and sparks that showcased the terrifying beauty of Askari combat. Vector relied on brute force, but Zashara moved like water, dodging strikes that would have pulverized stone. It was brutal, fast and decisive. With a precision strike, she brought the general to his knees, her blade at his throat. She had won. The arena erupted. Zashara locked eyes with Dax, her victory absolute. Jorgo clapped him on the shoulder, offering congratulations on the impending nuptials. Dax wanted to vomit. The confrontation in the docking bay was the stuff of nightmares. An entire battalion of Askari warriors cheered as Zashara claimed her prize. Dax, surrounded by heavily armed super soldiers, tried one last desperate plea for sanity. He respected the effort. Truly, the Grand Theft spaceship and the pet monster were impressive. But he argued that marriage shouldn't be the result of death-defying stunts. "Is this not how humans court?" Zashara asked, genuinely confused. Jorgo, ever the helpful bystander, pointed out that humans usually started with talking. Zashara processed this, realizing she had perhaps been too efficient. She asked Dax what he proposed instead. Looking at her, this terrifying, unstoppable woman who had conquered the impossible just because she liked the way he fixed a ship, Dax realized something shift within him. He didn't hate the idea of her. He was terrified, yes, but also strangely flattered. "A date?" Dax suggested, his voice trembling only slightly. "We start with dinner." The warriors grumbled at the weak compromise, but Zashara agreed. Later that night, in a quiet booth, the absurdity of it all settled into a warm hum. Zashara Vex, warlord robber and beast tamer, had a laugh that lit up the room. She loved spicy food and terrible comedy. Outside, Snuffles the Void Beast watched them with glowing eyes, a silent guardian of this strange new alliance. Dax smiled, realizing that while he might have lost control of his life, the crash landing wasn't half bad. Sometimes, the things we run from are the only things worth catching.